My name is Victoria. I'm 48 years old, and for most of my adult life, I believe that if you showed up consistently, emotionally, financially, quietly, you would eventually be seen. I was wrong. The moment everything shattered wasn't loud. There was no argument, no shouting. Just a thin piece of expensive paper placed in my hand, folded neatly, as if it were a favor instead of an insult. It happened to my stepson Leo's college graduation. I had paid for almost everything that made that day possible. 4 years of tuition, his apartment rent, his car payments, his insurance, his groceries, and more late-night rescue calls than I could count. I stood there on the sun-soaked campus lawn, surrounded by proud families and flashing cameras, believing, foolishly, that this would be the moment I finally mattered. Leo had just finished giving his graduation speech. It was polished, confident, and full of gratitude. Just not for me. He thanked his late mother. He praised his father. He emotionally acknowledged his father's glamorous new partner. And then he stepped off the stage to thunderous applause, never once saying my name. I felt invisible, but I told myself to stay calm. I told myself that speeches are emotional, rushed, imperfect. I told myself not to ruin the day by overthinking. Then Leo walked up to me. He didn't hug me. He didn't thank me. He smiled the way someone smiles at customer service staff, pleasant, detached. "Hey, Victoria," he said casually. "We're all heading to dinner now." Then he handed me the bill. 42 people. A private room at a luxury steakhouse. Pre-selected wine pairings. Automatic gratuity. Total, $7,000 plus. "Figured you'd take care of this," he added, loud enough for nearby relatives to hear. And just like that, 10 years of my life clicked into focus. I met Leo when he was 12. His father, Robert, was charming, successful, and deeply invested in appearances. I was an architect, someone who believed in foundations, in slow construction, in things built to last. When we married, I didn't try to replace Leo's mother. I just tried to support him. I helped with homework. I attended meetings. I paid when things fell through, because they always did. Robert loved big gestures, expensive gifts, flashy moments. I handled everything else. The small stuff. Except the small stuff was tuition payments, emergency fines, rent transfers, late-night calls when Leo panicked because he forgot a deadline or made a mistake and didn't want to tell his dad. Somehow, I became the quiet solution to every problem, so reliable that my effort disappeared entirely. The first time I noticed, it was Leo's 16th birthday. I bought him a drafting table, hoping to share my love of design with him. Robert bought him a sports car. Guess which gift mattered? By the time Leo went to college, the pattern was permanent. Robert handled praise. His new partner handled image. I handled reality. I told myself it would change. Graduation was supposed to be the finish line. Instead, it was the receipt. As I stood there holding that bill, everyone watched. They expected me to nod, smile, slide it into my purse, because that's what I always did. But something inside me finally broke. Not in anger, not in tears, but in absolute clarity. This wasn't forgetfulness. This wasn't youth. This was entitlement. I looked at Leo, really looked at him. The smirk, the confidence, the certainty that I would comply. And I realized something devastating. He didn't see me as family. He saw me as a wallet. And in that moment, I knew if I paid that bill, I would be paying for my own erasure. I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I did something far more shocking. And when I did, the entire family froze. For a few long seconds, no one spoke. The campus lawn buzzed with celebration. Laughter, camera shutters, champagne corks. But around us, a strange pocket of silence formed. Dozens of eyes flicked between Leo and me, waiting for the familiar ending. The reliable one. The version of me they all knew. The woman who always paid. Leo shifted his weight, clearly expecting me to take the bill and tuck it away. His father, Robert, stood nearby with his arm around Tiffany, looking proud and relaxed, already basking in post-graduation glory. This wasn't their problem. It never was. I unfolded the paper slowly. The numbers were worse than I expected. I wasn't shocked by the amount. I was shocked by the assumption. 42 people. Steaks, seafood towers, premium wine packages, items I had never approved, never discussed. My name wasn't on the reservation. I hadn't been consulted once. Yet somehow, the responsibility landed exactly where it always did. On me. Victoria? Leo said, his tone sharpening slightly. We're running late. The reservation's at 6. There it was. Not a request. A reminder. I glanced at David, my partner, standing beside me. He didn't speak. He didn't intervene. He just looked at me steadily, the way someone does when they know a moment is coming, and it has to be yours alone. I folded the bill once more and held in my hand. 10 years flashed through my mind like a highlight reel I'd never asked to watch. The tuition portals I logged into every semester. The rent transfer scheduled like clockwork. The nights I stayed awake proofreading papers while Leo slept. The emergencies I fixed quietly so Robert could remain the hero. And suddenly, something shifted. I wasn't angry. I was finished. About 10 steps away stood a large black trash bin, overflowing with graduation programs and empty water bottles. It wasn't symbolic when I noticed it. It was just there. I took a step toward it. Someone behind me whispered my name. I took another step. Victoria. Robert snapped, his voice sharp with warning. I kept walking. Each step felt surreal, like I was moving underwater, slow but unstoppable. The chatter around us died completely now. Even Leo had gone silent. I reached the trash bin. I held the bill above it for one brief moment. Then I looked back. Leo's expression had changed. The smug confidence was gone, replaced by confusion, then disbelief. He opened his mouth as if to stop me, but no words came out. And then I let go. The bill fluttered once before landing on top of discarded programs. Gone. I turned around without saying a single word. The explosion came immediately. Are you serious? Leo shouted. What the hell was that? Robert stepped forward, his face dark with rage. You embarrassed us. In front of everyone. Tiffany didn't speak. She just stared, her perfectly composed expression cracking for the first time since I'd known her. I didn't respond. I didn't need to, because for the first time in a decade, I wasn't explaining myself. David gently placed his hand on my back. Ready? He asked quietly. Yes, I said, and we walked away. The shouting followed us, my name called in disbelief, then anger, but it all blurred into noise. We didn't stop. We didn't turn around. By the time we reached the car, my hands were shaking, not from fear but from adrenaline. David started the engine. Only then did my phone begin to explode. Call after call. Text after text. How dare you? You ruined everything. You owe us. You always pay. That one made me laugh. Not softly. Not politely. I laughed until tears streamed down my face. Until my chest hurt. Until David glanced at me with concern and relief mixed together. You okay? He asked. I said between breaths. I just graduated too. I blocked Leo first, then Robert, then anyone else whose name felt heavy instead of safe. Each tap felt lighter than the last. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was peaceful. That night, sitting on our back deck with an unopened bottle of champagne meant for celebration, David asked, Do you regret it? I thought about the bill, the speech, the years I spent shrinking myself into a supporting role. No, I said, I regret not doing it sooner. But I didn't realize yet that throwing away the bill wasn't the end. It was the beginning of consequences, and the fallout was about to get very ugly. Once the noise faded, something unexpected happened. I got curious. Not curious about Leo, or Robert, or the dinner bill, but about myself. About how much I had really given. About how deep the damage actually went. One quiet afternoon, while David was grading papers in the next room, I opened my laptop and started pulling up old bank statements. At first, I told myself I was just looking for closure. A rough estimate. A general idea. That was a lie. I needed to see the truth in black and white. I opened a spreadsheet. Tuition payments, semester by semester. Apartment rent, 48 months. Car down payment. Insurance premiums. Parking fines. Emergency transfers. Textbooks. Flights. Deposits. Fees I had forgotten existed. The numbers stacked up quickly. Too quickly. My chest tightened as the total climbed higher and higher. until it finally crossed into six figures. 6 figures. I leaned back in my chair, stunned, not because I didn't believe it, but because part of me finally understood why I had been so tired for so long. This wasn't generosity. This was depletion. David came in quietly and glanced at the screen. He didn't comment right away. Then he let out a low whistle. That's a lot. It's not the money, I said, though my voice wavered. It's what I traded for it. I had traded peace, time, self-respect, and worst of all, I had taught a grown man that my role was to provide without limit or acknowledgement. The $7,000 dinner bill hadn't been the insult. It had been the final exam. The last loose end was a joint savings account Robert and I had never closed after the divorce. It wasn't large, just a few $1,000s we'd once agreed would be for Leo's future emergencies. Emergencies that, somehow, always became my responsibility. The next morning, I went to the bank. I closed the account. The teller asked if I wanted the funds transferred to my personal savings. I hesitated. Then I said no. Instead, I walked a few blocks to the downtown public library, the one I had designed years earlier, the building I was proud of, the one Leo had once dismissed as nice. I found the director of the adult literacy program. This is anonymous, I said, handing her the check. Use it wherever it helps most. Her eyes filled with tears. This will fund tutoring for months. As I walked out of the library, something shifted inside me. For the first time, my money was doing what it was supposed to do, growing. 3 months passed. No calls, no texts, no apologies. The silence wasn't awkward anymore. It was normal. Then one afternoon, while David and I were planning a trip, I got a message from an old mutual acquaintance, someone who clearly didn't want to be involved but couldn't help themselves. I thought you should know. The message read, Leo's working 2 jobs now. Apparently, the restaurant demanded payment, and Robert refused to cover it. Tiffany told Leo he's an adult and needs to handle his own responsibilities. I stared at the screen. There was no satisfaction, just inevitability. Leo was finally paying for something he chose. Not because I punished him, but because I stopped protecting him from reality. I typed back a short response. Thank you for letting me know. I wish him well. And I meant it. When we returned from Spain weeks later, sunburned, inspired, lighter, I threw myself into work. Not the frantic, obligation-driven work of before, but creative work. Purposeful work. David and I began building a small studio in our backyard. Nothing flashy, just solid. Ours. One afternoon, surrounded by sawdust and half-finished walls, David asked, "Do you miss them?" I thought carefully. "I miss who I thought they were," I said, "not who they actually showed me." He nodded, understanding completely. That night, lying in bed, I felt one last ache, not for Leo, but for the woman I used to be, the one who believed love could be earned through sacrifice. I let her go. I thought the story ended there, but then I received a message that made me realize something terrifying. They didn't think they'd lost me. They thought I'd come back. The message arrived on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. No warning, no apology, just entitlement dressed up as concern. It came from Robert's sister, a woman I had never been close to, but who had always enjoyed having opinions about my life when it benefited her family. "Hi, Victoria. I don't know what's going on with you, but Leo is struggling. He's overwhelmed, exhausted, and this whole situation has gone way too far. Family doesn't just walk away like this." I stared at the screen longer than I needed to. Not once did the message ask how I was. Not once did it acknowledge what had happened. Not once did it take responsibility. The subtext was clear. You've punished him long enough. That was when I understood something crucial. They truly believed my absence was temporary. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I scrolled back through old messages from years ago. Emergency requests, financial favors, last-minute rescues. Each one framed as a necessity. Each one ending with the same assumption. You'll handle it. I never had been thanked properly, because to them, gratitude was unnecessary. I wasn't help. I was infrastructure. That evening, David found me sitting quietly at the kitchen table. "They reached out again?" he asked. I nodded. "They think this is a phase," I said. "They think I'll calm down." David pulled out a chair and sat across from me. "And will you?" "No," I said without hesitation. I won't. For the first time, the word felt solid. Final. The next morning, I replied, not with emotion, not with explanation, but with clarity. I'm not walking away. I already left. Please don't contact me again. I blocked the number immediately after sending it. No debate. No defense. No opening. A week later, I heard the rest through indirect channels. Robert was furious, not embarrassed, not remorseful, but angry that his carefully maintained image had cracks. Tiffany was distancing herself, suddenly uninterested in shared responsibility now that money was involved. Leo was exhausted, juggling shifts, confused about why adulthood had arrived so abruptly. For the first time, they were experiencing consequences without a safety net. And for the first time, I wasn't there to soften the fall. One evening, while organizing old files, I found a handwritten note from years ago. One Leo had written in high school after I helped him through a rough semester. Thanks for always being there, it read. I don't say it enough. I sat with it for a long time. That boy had existed once, but that man had made choices. And loving someone doesn't mean sacrificing yourself to preserve a version of them that no longer exists. I folded the note and placed it in a box, not as an anchor, but as a memory. Life grew quieter after that. Better quieter. David and I finished the backyard studio together. No grand reveal. No applause. Just steady progress and shared laughter. The kind of partnership I had been missing for years. One afternoon, while we sat on the steps watching the sun dip low, David asked, "Do you ever wonder if they'll apologize?" I thought about it carefully. They might, I said, but it wouldn't change anything. Because apologies without accountability are just noise. Months later, I ran into a former colleague at a cafe. She asked how I'd been. I smiled and said, "I stopped financing people who didn't respect me." She blinked, then laughed. "That sounds expensive." "It was," I replied, "but freedom usually is." That night, lying in bed, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Lightness. Not relief. Not victory. Peace. I hadn't won anything. I had simply stopped losing myself. So here's what I want to ask you. If the people you love only value what you provide, at what point do you stop proving your worth and start protecting it? Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away and never look back.